Hey, it's Ed Burns. Check out Public Morals, my new show about New York City cops in the 1960s and the vices they managed. Tuesday, August 25th at 10/9 Central, only on TNT.
We're coming to you from the DraftKings.com podcasting studios. DraftKings.com, America's one-day fantasy sports site, where it's like a new season every time you play. DraftKings.com.
Now, the right time with Bomani Jones on ESPN Radio.
And ESPNRadio.com.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the right time. My name is Bomani Jones. Thanks for listening on ESPN Radio and the new ESPN app. We are presented by Progressive Insurance. Send us a tweet at the 1-800-Flowers.com Twitter feed. That is at Bomani_Jones. And so I do a television show. It's called Highly Questionable at 4:30 Eastern Time on ESPN, though we're on ESPN2 this week. And I was leaving, and then I heard on the radio that there was a news story, and I was like, man, they're going to make me go back to work to record on this again. I was like, maybe people won't care so much about this, right? So I was like, maybe I can hurry up and get home and pretend like I got to do something else. But I was like, nah. I'll slow down. And then they called, and I turned it back around, right? Because a big story had come up. Now, I think you know what that story is, but I want to help you understand exactly how that story must go. So, as some of you know, I currently do this radio show here from my home, right? I'm in my house. You may have been listening the other night when Pablo Torre came in and I almost had a heart attack because I wasn't expecting nobody to run up in my house while I was doing my radio show. Anyway, I do the radio show at the house. And somehow, earlier today, there was like a fly in here, right? And I was thinking to myself, man, how terrible would it be if a bee just started flying around in this room while I'm doing this show? I was like, man, I just have to throw the headphones off and run away, right? Like, that would be worst case scenario. That's what I was thinking to myself. And then I'm in here, and about 10 minutes before the show started, there was a bee in here. Like, there was actually a bee in here. Shannon, you might have heard a loud slap on the floor at one point. That was me with a flip-flop because I had to hit it with the Raid and then go ahead and deliver the shot.
I heard some spray. I could have sworn I heard some spray.
Yeah, it was a bee. Like, I thought that bee up. Now, imagine if you're Geno Smith and you were riding to work today and you were thinking, man, wouldn't the worst thing in the world be if some dude punched me in the face and broke my jaw and I was out for 6 to 10 weeks because it was going to require surgery? And then you get to work, and then you do get punched in the jaw, and you find out you're out 6 to 10 weeks. Like, maybe is that what happened to Geno Smith? Did he think up the jaw breaking like I thought that bee up in my house? Is that what it is? Because, this is crazy. Crazy. Like, the only other quarterback that I could think of, just like in my time, I'm 34, like in my time, getting hit in the locker room. There was a story about Kerry Collins getting hit in the locker room once, and they said it was just accidental, that when he got hit in the locker room, they was play fighting. It was just coincidental that he had a tendency to use very powerful racial slurs in the locker room about members of races that are not his own.
I'm sure somebody tripped and fell.
Yeah. You know, but that's the only time. That's what it took. What did it take for Geno Smith to get his jaw broken? Well, it kind of depends on how you look at it, right? We have found out that his teammate, whose name barely matters, I think he probably would prefer that we did not say his name out loud. Let me make sure I got his name in front of me so I pronounce it properly. The gentleman that punched him in the jaw is named I.K. Enimkpali. I hate what it is. Enimkpali? Is that how you say it? Sure. Like, I don't want to say his name wrong. Like, I'm not trying to joke. I'm not exactly sure how to pronounce this. So apparently, Geno Smith was supposed to go to Buddy's football camp outside of Austin over the summer. And Geno was down to go. He booked a plane ticket for Geno, and then one of Geno's friends died in a motorcycle accident in Miami. So Geno had to cancel and come to Miami. But your man IK wants his money. Like, the way he saw it, Geno owed him $600 for that ticket. So they're in the locker room, and apparently they had a dispute, And Shannon, we got any audio maybe that came from that dispute?
Playing with my money is like playing with my emotions.
Ooh. We got anything else?
Where's my money? You gonna give me my money? Where's my money, man?
Yeah, except it wasn't really repeated blows, apparently. It sounds like what the French call the one-hitter quitter. In France, they would actually call that le un-hitter quitter. But he called it with that one-hitter quitter. Everybody's getting all the laughs about Geno getting his jaw broken. I ain't really got no jokes about that part. Like, he got his jaw broken. It has been described as a sucker punch by some people, and I'm having difficulty detecting whether or not it was actually a sucker punch or not. Because there is a thin line between getting sucker punched and getting hit first. It's a very, very thin line. And very often the guy who got hit first argues that he got sucker punched. Now, people who cover the Jets, has been around. A few reports have said that Geno Smith put his finger in the dude's face, which was followed shortly thereafter by the jaw breaking. Okay? Shannon, why you shake your head like that?
No, you can't do it. You can't do the finger in the face. That's almost as bad as a mush.
Yeah, generally speaking, you only put your finger in the faces of people you don't think are going to punch you in the face. Just generally speaking. And the reason is, generally speaking, if you put your finger in someone's face, like, I don't really have time to quibble about the right or wrong of it, right? But generally speaking, if you put your finger in somebody's face, there's a good chance you're going to get socked. I think we all understand that. Like, whether it's right or wrong, there's a good chance that you're going to get socked. I can put that in a different way, okay? If I leave the front door of my house open, wide open, it's reasonable for me to expect that my stuff is going to get stolen. Now, don't get me wrong. It's still stolen, right? Like, I'm not saying that I donated my stuff. It's not all fair. Like, just because my door is wide open doesn't mean you get to help yourself to my flat screen. But I'm not going to be shocked when I come home and I don't have a flat screen if I left the front door wide open. Like, that's kind of the situation that Geno appears to have gotten himself in. Now, it's actually interesting. I was talking on social media with people about this, going back and forth, and I was floored by how many people didn't understand what I was saying. Like, I'm not condoning breaking that dude's jaw. In fact, I can't think of anything dumber that you can do if you were a 6th-round pick last year and nobody knows your name and you broke the starting quarterback's jaw. Like, y'all are talking, like, people talk about Geno Smith, but Geno's sorry. Geno might be sorry, but he ain't the starting quarterback because he's sorry. He's the starting quarterback because he's the best quarterback they got. Like, whether you like it or not, that's the dude. That's as good as it's going to get for him. And if you're telling me you think that Ryan Fitzpatrick is better, I really ain't got no understanding of what. No. We've seen this over and over again. Like, this Ryan Fitzpatrick thing, Shannon, it's not the business.
No, we've been there, done that in Buffalo and Houston.
We know how it goes. Like, best case scenario is not that good. Like, best case scenario with Ryan Fitzpatrick, he just ain't going to mess nothing up. Now, to be fair, Geno Smith has a great tendency to mess stuff up. Like, a significant tendency to mess stuff up. But best case scenario for Geno is actually pretty good. Like, when Geno's rolling, Geno is actually pretty good. And part of why I'm not so inclined to get in on all these jokes about Geno is because I've always felt like he's gotten a bit of a bad rap. Not that he is a good quarterback, because I don't think he's a good quarterback. I didn't think he was going to be a good quarterback coming out of college. Like, I always had questions about Geno, even when people were saying that he was the top quarterback in the draft that year. Like, that was never the business for me. That was never where I was on Geno. But after that crazy Nolan Naraki report came out, everything went downhill for that dude, man. Everything. Think about it. We were looking at him as the number 1 quarterback in that draft. That report came out, that scouting report that Naraki did, and Geno became like a flashpoint for everybody. But the problem was, basically, he became known to everybody primarily for being black, because the question about the Naraki scouting report was about how it tied into racial stereotypes of black quarterbacks. But that made Geno like flashpoint a black quarterback. Then he got Jay-Z as his with Rock Nation, rather. He's signed with Rock Nation. So now he's that guy to people. And then he goes to the draft, and I didn't even blame him, man. He made it through everything in the draft, all those reports. He did all his pro days, and everybody and their mom told him he was going to be a first-round pick. So he sat up in that green room like, you know what, y'all talked all this noise about me. I'm about to be a first-round pick. The next thing you know, Buffalo's drafting E.J. Manuel, and he's like, what? Wait.
Did they mispronounce? Did they mispronounce
you call
my
your
name?
agent like, yo, so did they just get the two of us mixed up? I know they be doing that, right? Like maybe that's what he said. He goes through that whole thing in the green room, and now there's he thinks this, he thinks that, or whatever it is. He goes to the second round. And being a second-round quarterback, it's great as a team. If you can get a good second-round quarterback, it's awful as the quarterback, though, because you have no real security, and they can go get your replacement at any point in time. Geno went in the second round to the worst team that could possibly draft him, because the whole team is a joke. Like the franchise as a staff, label, as a fragger-knacker crew. It is a joke. And who became the head man of that joke? Geno. And like I say, he ain't great. But the joy that people have taken in his jaw getting broken for a dude that, like, honestly hasn't done anything to anybody else, like, I can't participate in that. But so much.
Bomani.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to The Right Time. My name is Bomani Jones. Thanks for listening on ESPN Radio and the new ESPN app. We are presented by Progressive Insurance. We are talking about Geno Smith and the situation that he wound up in. And really, I found this very interesting that I told people that, hey, man, you put your finger in somebody's face, there's a good chance a fight's going to start. People saying, so you're saying that means he was justified for punching the guy in the face? No, I'm not really getting into that, right? Like, I thought those are just kind of the rules. Aren't those the rules?
I thought so.
I thought those were just the rules. Now, you can talk about whether the rules are right or wrong. Honestly, that's not where I'm putting up my challenge to right and wrong. Like, I'm generally willing to sacrifice my right to put my finger in somebody's face. I'm willing to give that up, right? Like, that's fine. I don't need that right now. I can give that up. So you won't put your finger in my face, I won't put my finger in your face, and everything's straight. Because the only person that's putting his finger in your face is somebody that thinks you're not going to hit them back. And nothing makes you want to hit somebody more than somebody telling you that you're not going to hit them back. I think we can all agree upon that, right? We're all straight there? Those are just the rules. It just so happened that apparently Geno put his fingers in the face of Manos de Piedra. Yeah. Boy, that awkward moment when you find out that you're messing with the wrong one. Over the $600 plane ticket, by the way.
61265?
Yes, sir. Yeah. No. That's not what you want. It's not what you want. And like I say, apparently this started over the plane ticket. And I'm noticing a lot of people are saying, well, Geno, why don't you just give the man this $600? You make X amount of money. Yo, that dude that hit him made over $500,000 last year. Like, if he's tripping on $600, he's tripping too. But you know why he's tripping on it? I bet if you were to go ask Pali right now, like, yo, man, what are you doing, dog? Because, I mean, once again, this is really stupid. Like, punching the starting quarterback in the face. I can't think of anything dumber that you can do as a football player. Like, no matter how mad you get, I don't care if Geno put his finger directly between your eyes. You got to let that one slide. Like, at least try. Maybe you tried, right? You got to try to let that one slide. You absolutely do. I'm not losing my job over that. But over $600, man, I bet if you went and asked Pali, Manos de Piedra, if you're like, yo, man, what you doing, man? Get into a fight. You lost, how you going to lose your job over that? He's going to be like, it's a matter of principle. You know principle, guy.
Playing with my money is like playing with my emotions.
Yeah, dog. You know principle, guy. It's the principality of the situation. Because, that is a principality of the situation, right? He put his finger in my face, therefore I socked him. That's what that is. However, now he's got a problem. He doesn't have a job. He need that cheese. And when I say he need that cheese, I mean he need that $600 that Geno owes him. Right? Like, hey, in theory, just because he broke that dude's jaw doesn't mean that Geno don't owe him that $600 no more. And I don't know about you, but I've lost my job before. And when you lose your job, the first thing you do is make a list of everybody who owes you money. You need to turn some of those receivables into cold, hard cash. Them account receivables don't do you no good on the first of the month, baby. I need money. I need cheese. And this dude needs cheese from anywhere he can get it. So, you think he bold enough to go ask Geno for his $600?
Like before, it would be nice to have my $600. Now
yes.
I need my
$600. Before it was a matter of principle. Now it's a matter of survival. I need my $600. Like, I feel as though, given the way he was pressing Geno about that $600, he sounded like a man who need that $600. I could be wrong. Like, anybody know what kind of car he drives? Because that's the thing, man. That note come due, no matter what. That note come due. Because you're a young dude in the NFL, man. You get a check in your pocket. You know, you got yourself some money, right?
It's a six-round pick,
right? You know, you get yourself some dough. You got to go buy something nice for yourself, right? You got to at least get a nice crib or something like that. Like, there's this story out about Ryan Broyles and how Ryan Broyles is living off $60,000 a year. And good for him, right? Like, bless his heart. If I hit for a lick and I'm 23 years old, I'm getting me something nice. And then at some point, I'm going to lose my job, and I don't know how the hell I'm going to pay for it. And I feel like if you pressing Geno Smith about this $600, maybe that's who you are right now. So how's that phone call go? Hey, yo, Geno, yes, I can't. Hey, man, I need to apologize. Yeah. I mean, things got out of hand, you know what I'm saying? And, you know, we teammates, and we've been we're not teammates no more because I lost my job. But, you know, we've been teammates, and it's like, you know, I just wanted to tell you that I recognize the mistake that I made in that situation and that I got your back. I really do. And you a stand-up guy, and you always been a stand-up guy, and I should have known that no matter what happened, you were going to pay your debt. Because you the sort of dude that when you owe somebody money, no matter what happens, rain, sleet, snow, hail, perhaps even a fractured mandible, I know that you're going to pay back your debt. I also know that you're the sort of guy that knows that the only thing worse than one broken jaw is two broken jaws. So, what's up with that money, dog?
Like, hopefully we can move forward from this and come together, and in the future maybe we can look back at this and have a good laugh about it. But basically what I'm saying is, I need my $600.
You got my bread. You got my bread. So I got a buddy who may or may not have done a little bit of work as a bookie. And he was telling me once, he's not a criminal, right? He just engaged in a bit of a criminal enterprise. So he said that when cats owed him money, he would be real smooth about getting the money back. He said he'd invite them over to the house. He'd like cook up some wings. They'd hang out, you know, they'd be chilling. They'd watch TV. And he'd be like, all right, cool, man. So yeah, on the way out, all right, great. Well, why don't you just go ahead and put that money down right there? Like, maybe that's what he needs to do is go visit Geno's house and just go see how he's doing and make sure everything's okay. All right, cool. So before I go, we gonna settle up? Come on, dog. I ain't got no job. I don't have a job. Where is my money? Because something tells me this. Punching that dude in Charles Oakley. Remember when he slapped Tyrone Hill about that money that Tyrone Hill owed him? Guess what? Tyrone Hill still had to pay him money. Yo, this dude still wants his money. Geno need to come up with his money.
Bomani.
I think the best Ty Bowles quote, we couldn't get the sound of it, where he said, "You don't get another chance when you break the starting quarterback's jaw. Like, you can't stick around. You can't."
That's literally the one-hitter quitter.
That is, look, man, y'all can talk about how sorry Geno is. You got to look at Geno being sorry like your mama's hoopty. When it breaks down, you ain't trying to walk to the bus stop. You know? Like, that car isn't very reliable, but it's a car. They don't have a car. Like, that was their one car. You might not want to be seen in that car, you know? It might not have all the bells and whistles. Right. Sometimes the air conditioner might blow hot, but it's your car. And your car is always better than the bus. And guess who's coming off the pine? The Harvard bus. Ryan Fitzpatrick. But Ty Bowles, man, that's got to be a frustrated gentleman, man. Like, you just got there. It's bad. Like I say, the only it's not the only thing worse than Geno being your starting quarterback. But Geno being your starting quarterback is not a problem because he's your starter. It's a problem because he's the best quarterback that you've got. Like, that's fundamentally what your issue is that the best quarterback on your team is Geno Smith. So Todd Bowles was walking in the door knowing that one. So let's think about what's happened since he got there. All right, he knew Sheldon Richardson was going to miss the 4 games, but then Sheldon Richardson, went all speed racer on him with a kid in the car. So who knows how that one's going to play out, right? So he had that, and now he's got this. And who plays wide receiver for them?
Well, they got Marshall.
Oh, wow, he's going to be pleasant. Okay, they got Brandon Marshall. That's going to make things better, in a way. Who else played wide receiver for them? They still Eric Decker?
Decker, yeah.
Well, at least he doesn't have to try to be like a number 1 anymore. And they got the little homie Curly.
Yeah.
He plays for them. That ain't no murderer's row, Jack. That's not. At least Brandon Marshall's always open, right? And there's something to be said for that. He's one of those dudes who's always open. And Todd Bowles, good luck with that first year, Jack, because they're going to eat you alive. Because this is an amazing thing about the way that we cover sports. We can know every extenuating circumstance that's putting somebody in a bad situation, and we forget it all as soon as those losses start. Like, the worst thing Todd Bowles can do is mess around and make this team just good enough to lose games. Close ones. Wouldn't want to be that dude. At all. But switching gears just a little bit, and the telephone number is 888-729-3776. Hey, man, they're always, coming up with all kinds of little tricks and stuff they want to do, and they always talk about doing these rule changes in the NFL. Y'all didn't tell me they actually changed the extra point.
See? Had you been watching the Hall of Fame game, you would have seen it.
I mean, let me tell you, I would have seen it, and I would have been shocked. I would have thought it was just something. So, in the regular season, they're going to be kicking these 33-yard extra points?
It's real.
And you can run them back? Oh, you see that? You don't know that?
Oh, I didn't catch that part.
I think you can run them back. I'm sorry. It never dawned on me I would need to keep up with the goings-on of the extra point. Hey, man, let me tell you something. That 33-yard extra point sounds like a great idea in September. Like a really, really good idea in September. Wait till you're kicking that thing at Lambeau in January. That ain't going to seem like such a great idea then. And let me tell you what the worst thing, I got to be honest with you, the worst thing about them making this extra point longer. Because, look, most guys are going to make a 33-yard extra point. Like Connor Barth said, most guys can make that kick in their sleep. And I agree with that. That's probably going to be the case. Most guys are going to make those kicks. I think it goes from 98 or 99% likelihood of making the kick to 93 when you take it to a 33-yard kick. Most guys are going to make the kick, but what that's going to do is it's going to leave teams, especially in bad weather, more compelled to go for 2. And it's really going to mess up my understanding of the math of football. Right?
And according to the rule change, the defense can return a blocked extra point or a failed 2-point try. And if they return it, it'll count as 2 points. Okay,
so they're going to full college on it, right? They're going to full college on it. This is all I'm saying, man. You tell me that a game was 17-14, I got a decent idea of how the scoring went, right? Couple touchdowns and a field goal. I know how that goes. We know all those numbers. They get a little unwieldy when a team kicks 3, 4, 5 field goals or something like that. But by and large, you think about that. You see a score being 16. You know how we got to 16. There's some numbers that we just don't regularly arrive at in football. Wait till you start seeing these 25s, these 18s. Wait till you start seeing those.
They're going to start putting up CFL numbers.
Yeah, man, I don't know what's going on. Was that a rouge? Did they get a rouge? I feel so old right now, them talking this extra point thing, because I'm just why would you do that? We're going to put the excitement in the extra point. Nobody asked for excitement in the extra point.
We had a good thing going already.
We're just fine. That's how you know, man. They've just reached the ceiling on what they can do with football, right? Because, okay, it's a corporate structure. Well, it's not a corporation, but, it's basically operating according to the same principles and growth. Gotta grow. Everybody's got to get more valuation. The higher valuation goes on the projection of growth. Gotta grow. How much more football can you sell? Like, how much more stuff surrounding football can you sell? Like, how can you make this better than it is when people love it as it is? And I don't know if there's any way to make it better, but all you can do really is make it different. Like, you can try to just tinker around with things just to try to, keep the spice in the relationship. Right? I just don't feel like the extra point is the way to go about it. I just don't. I'll tell you, wait till the game that matters gets decided by one of these silly 33-yard kicks.
So I guess it was getting boring with that scheduled extra point and that old schedule way of doing things, huh? Had to add some spice to the extra point, huh? Got to
do it. Let me tell you what you need to do, man. You want to make the extra point more exciting? Start signing sorry kickers. All of us have rooted for a team that had a kicker that made the extra point exciting. It doesn't make you want an exciting extra point. Right? Shannon, who can you think of a kicker that you just hated that kick for the Giants? You're a Giants fan?
Well, it wasn't a kicker. It was a punter.
The guy that kicked it to
Matt Dodge. Yeah.
Is that the one that kicked it to Deshaun Jackson?
Mm-hmm.
That time Deshaun Jackson stunted on the sideline on y'all when y'all blew that big old lead in 2010. You remember that?
Mm-hmm.
I remember that.
Yeah.
I rooted for the Falcons growing up. Like, the Morton Anderson thing helped out. Every other kicker before him might as well have been me, as far as I was concerned. Like, every single one. But the stakes is about to get high for the kickers.
Could you only imagine if Martin Gramatica was still in the game and how he used to celebrate over regular extra points? Could you imagine now with a 33-yard extra point?
I'm justified now. I'm justified.
He's doing back handsprings.
Hey, man, this is what they want. Let's see how it goes. I think that's one of those things that sounds like a better idea until you actually do it. They go get that old thing back pronto. Just you wait.
Geico presents Strange Saving Stories. Astronomers detected an interstellar transmission. It stated, Geico, 15 minutes could save you 15% or more. The implications were staggering. Was the cosmos telling us we could all save hundreds on car insurance with Geico? Or did their radar merely pick up a signal from the nearby Rufus and Clyde's morning show? We may never know.
Geico. 15 minutes could save you 15% or more on car insurance.
Now, the right time with Bomani Jones on ESPN Radio.
And ESPNRadio.com.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the right time. My name is Bomani Jones. Thanks for listening on ESPN Radio and the new ESPN app. All guests join us on the Subway Fresh Take Hotline. Shannon, you got on that new Dre yet?
It's coming.
Dog, you got to get on the Dre is so cold. Like it makes no sense that a band that old is still making rap music that good. Like, he's almost 50 years old, and it's incredible. And we got a song that's a DJ Premier and a Dr. Dre beat, and it sounds like a Dr. Dre beat and a DJ Premier beat.
At the same time?
At the same damn time.
1994 just went wild.
Woo, man. My man Marvin got in my ear and said that 1994 just went wild. Marvin, I feel like you trying to clown us right now.
No. That Dre album is crazy.
It's nuts, man.
Eminem put his foot in that record.
Yeah, although he went too far. Eminem, you're a little too old to be talking about raping women on songs. We don't find those things to be funny anymore, Eminem. But pretty much everything else, fuego. Anyway, telephone number is 888-729-3776. I spent a lot of time in my career in ACC country. I lived in Durham, North Carolina for 10 years. I did radio out of Raleigh. Shout out to my folks in Raleigh who are listening right now to us. Living there meant I had to watch a lot of ACC football. I got to admit, I'm kind of bummed out about the fact, Shannon, that after I left, ACC football got passably good.
Coincidence? I think not.
Yeah, I mean, when I got there, it got bad. Like, the whole point, what that conference always needed to be good at football, what they were betting on, especially after expansion. But before expansion, Florida State had to be good. Like, the health of the conference depended on whether or not Florida State was good. Then they expanded, and it was basically built on the idea that Florida State and Miami would be your top-tier good teams, and then you'd have Clemson and Virginia Tech, and then maybe one day, maybe just maybe one day, North Carolina would figure it out, right? But those were the 4 teams that needed to be good. Virginia
Right.
Tech, Clemson, Florida State, Miami. This Miami thing, I don't know what exactly is going on here, but Florida State and Clemson have held up their end of the bargain. Like, we can't even tell the same jokes about Clemson that we used to. I still don't trust them or anything like that, but they beat SEC teams. They win BCS bowl games. Sometimes they give up 70 in them, but that's a different discussion in and of itself. They give up 70 to West Virginia, right? Yeah, that's a bad look. Yeah, that was a bad look. Speaking of bad looks, both football programs, the Florida State and Clemson, have decided that their players, Shannon, they can't tweet.
Yeah, they're going to, during the course of the football year, they're going to ask their players not to tweet. Now,
I know Clemson's players themselves a few years ago had come up with this bright idea in asking them not to tweet during the regular season. And look, man, I don't feel like they pay these guys enough to be telling them that they can't exist on social media. Because, see, here's the thing. What you're asking them to do right there is act like professionals. And you guys go out of your way to make sure that they are not professionals. But one of the worst things I hate about college athletics, and we can get into the idea about whether or not athletes should get paid. Like, I don't feel the need to have that argument right now, right? Like, I don't need to do that. But I can say this. You want them to be amateurs, but then you want them to be treated like professionals. Because what you're talking about here is professional behavior.
Right.
And that's not fair. Like, I just don't feel like you can have it both ways. See, the thing about social media with this younger generation of kids, this is different. Like, for us, this is still a relatively new thing for us. Like, a lot of us have been doing this for years or whatever, but it's still relatively new. This is like the lifeblood of the social existence of young people at this point. Like, this is the space in which they interact. This is where it goes on, right? So, basically, you're telling them that during the football season, you can have a social life kind of, but only on our terms, which feels problematic. Except I don't feel like this is just about, like, focus. It's also because you don't want them to say anything stupid. Like, that's what this comes down to. College programs do everything they can to try to stop those boys from saying anything stupid. At least stop them from saying anything stupid where anybody can hear them. They do their best to do that at all times. And I don't think it's to protect the players. It's to protect the program. It's because the program doesn't want to look bad. And what I don't feel like these programs are appreciating is these guys are in the age range where they're going to do stupid things. Your job is to help them learn from the stupid things that they do. There is but so much that you can do to prevent the stupidity. But with social media, if they make mistakes, those are moments that you teach from. Like, that's your job. That when you go into these guys' mothers' houses and talk about how you're going to help raise their sons, this is part of the gig. It's just too easy and too lazy for coaches to be like, you're just not allowed to do that. That's just what they're saying. One less thing for me to worry about. Nah, you're not allowed to do that. You can't grow like that.
And they mentioned the whole distraction thing. I think that's more of an excuse because there are plenty of distractions on a college campus outside of just the social media stuff. So that in itself is just a distraction,
yeah.
Excuse me.
Well, also, to be fair, these old dudes don't understand it. Like, it's this great big old amorphous world, and all they ever hear about it are the terrible things that happen. Like, they have no concept of what it is, so it's very easy for them to be like, well, you just stay off of there. Okay, fine. If that's how you see it. Like, if you were to ask those coaches what social media was, most of them would be like, it's Twitter. Well, what's that? You know, you say stuff. Because they only hear about it when something goes bad. Like, that's the only time. And that's a part of the modern existence. And the idea that you're going to take that away from somebody just to make your life easier, to me, is weak. Like, get out here and do your job. But, easy for me to say, right? Because I'm not the one that's responsible for the things those guys say. I am, however, a part of the larger institution that makes it such that coaches feel the need to stop players from being on social media. And that institution is the media. And I do not feel as though we are responsible in the ways that we handle the social media musings of athletes in general, college athletes in particular. We take these things, and then we make them into something that the coach then has to talk about, right? So Cardell Jones, the legendary tweet about, I didn't come here to play school, I came here to play football. And then they win a national championship, and that thing gets pulled up all over the place, and he's got to go back and answer for it. Hey, man, that is a dude who was having a thought. Like, that's how it works. People who exist in the social media space understands how it goes. Not everything that's said in that space is intended to be a big deal. It's not. And people know that those things are not all intended to be big deals. But we treat them as such because we need content. We do that because we need things to help make this machine roll. But we got to know better than what we're doing in a lot of these cases. We do. And we've got to know that we're being unfair in a lot of these cases. And we've got to know and have some understanding that there are going to be some growing pains that go on here. And quite honestly, these kids don't get paid enough for all of this. They just don't. But we do it. We rattle it off, and we play that game. And we are, in that way, part of the problem. We certainly are. But I don't think that simply because media is often irresponsible in handling behavior on social media, and because coaches don't understand it and don't want to deal with the stress, I don't think that that's a justification from divorcing college students from a major part of their social experience. I just don't think it is. And so whenever I talk about this thing, people always say, well, you don't think the coaches are justified in trying to protect their institution? I think their institution is supposed to serve their players. I don't think the players are supposed to serve the institution. That's how I think it's supposed to go. I think that the institution is supposed to make the players better. And if they can't figure out how to use social media to make their players better, then they are the ones who have an issue. So I get why they're doing it. I understand the game that they're playing. But if you can't recognize that that's a laziness on their part and that they're actually falling short of the responsibility that they purport to have, then that's your fault. I just will never understand, given the power dynamics in college sports, how it is that you can side with the power over the guys who have none. None. You adopt dogs from shelters because nobody takes care of them, but then you act like these guys who just have to do what anybody tells them. You side with the power. It's crazy.
Bomani.
Welcome to the right time. My name is Bomani Jones. Thanks for listening on ESPN Radio and the new ESPN app. We are presented by Progressive Insurance. You can send me a tweet at the 1-800-Flowers.com Twitter feed. That is at Bomani_Jones. Oh, Geno Smith. Geno caught himself in a horrible here situation where, got cold cocked. Now, I think a lot is being made about whether or not he actually got sucker punched or not. I think that that's not such a big deal, right? It is if you got punched. That certainly is the thing. But in terms of actually discussing the issue, I don't know how much that has to do with anything. It doesn't seem like a situation that anybody handled right. And Eamon Polly, the dude who broke Geno Smith's jaw, well, he doesn't have a job anymore. At the very least, his boss seems to believe that a sucker punch took place. And that was enough. And now he's gone. Now, Todd Bowles went out of his way to make sure that people knew that teammates did intervene, that teammates, after Geno Smith got socked, did, jump in and do something about it. Because, man, the last thing you want to do is be the guy who gets beat up and nobody around does anything to stop it. I remember once I was in college, there was this dude, and he got himself kicked out the dorm because I think he was, shall we say, breaking the law in his dorm room in a way that could be smelled all the way down the hall. And so the RA walked in and caught him. And then when the RA walked in and caught him, he didn't want to get kicked out the dorm. He didn't want to get sent back to his mama's house. So he started snitching and started telling on all kinds of people. And they just went through and started kicking people out the dorm left and right. All because this dude decided to tell. So one day we all minded our own business. Somehow he managed to make two dudes want to fight him in a 10-minute period. And what made it worse was the first dude who wanted to fight him went upstairs to put on his boots so that he had appropriate footwear for the fight. And while he was upstairs getting his boots, the dude got into a fighting situation with another cat who happened to be cool with the first dude. So when the first dude came back and started beating old buddy up, the second dude started beating old buddy up, and he got beat bloody on the resident director's car, and a bunch of girls were watching it. Like, it was a really terrible situation, and nobody tried to break it up. Nobody. Like, I always imagined that day, that dude had to go home, and he had to say to himself, look, man, I got to change the way I'm living. I got to. I got no choice. I got to change the way that I'm living. Because if people just watch you get stomped out, or if people watch you get choked out. Choked out is another one. People watch you get stomped out. People watch you get choked out. Like, nobody pulls you. Nobody pulls anybody off the pile. Nobody calls the police. Like, anything like that. Anything like that. Like, that's a horrible situation to be in. But the Jets had to do that because if they want to have, like, any chance of Geno Smith being quarterback, they need somebody stopping that fight. Like, that's what it has to be. Because he can't come back if the world knows that everybody just watched him get his jaw broken and nobody did anything. Really. It can't be that. It just can't. But that's where the Jets are right now, and that's the place that Geno Smith is in. I mean, Chris Carter was on ESPN earlier today, and Chris said something that I think kind of got people charged up, where he said that putting himself in a position to get sucker punched showed that Geno Smith exhibited poor leadership. And I didn't agree with that, right? Like, on first blush at hearing it, it's like, I don't know about that. The one thing I will say, though, if Geno Smith put his finger in Umpali's face, if he put his finger in the dude's face and did not think that there was a chance that he might get hit in the face, I don't want to go so far as to say that he showed poor leadership, but he wasn't showing a good deal of common sense. Like, I will say this. If the quarterback of a team is going to put his finger in somebody's face, chances are he is going to be respected enough to where nobody's going to punch him in the jaw. Whether he should be respected on that level or not, I don't really have the answer for you on that. I'm just saying I feel pretty confident that if you were a member of the Denver Broncos and Peyton Manning came up to you and put his finger in your face, like, it might be a little bit of a tussle, there might be some shoving, you're not about to punch Peyton Manning in the jaw. You're not. You're just not. And look, the consequences of punching Peyton Manning in the jaw would be the same as the consequences of punching Geno Smith in the jaw. Because this dude got released. The consequence part was exactly the same. I am not in a position to discuss whether or not Geno Smith is a good leader or not. I'm too far from that team. I honestly don't care. Like, I'm not there to be able to make that sort of assessment. But I am in a position to say that if he put a finger in the dude's face and the dude then broke Geno Smith's jaw, he don't think Geno Smith is the leader. Like, we could quibble all we want about whether or not Geno Smith is the leader or not. The fact that dude did that, he does not believe that Geno Smith is the leader. Like, he doesn't. And see, that's one thing about respect. Respect is never given. Respect is earned. Like, the only way that you can do this is that respect is earned. Always has been, always will be, right? Now, don't get me wrong. Breaking Geno Smith's jaw, not cool. Like, I'm not saying that that's appropriate. I'm saying that it was a foreseeable conclusion. But I'm not saying that it was appropriate. I'll never be the one to say that. I just can't. I mean, that part just does not feel right. It was just foreseeable. The point that I would make about this, though, is if people think that you're the dude in charge, they're not going to punch you in the jaw. The fair question to ask, though, is why should they think that Geno Smith is the dude in charge? And I'm not even saying that as a knock or an insult to Geno. Like, it's not even about Geno and his level of play. But take Robert Griffin, for example, right? When Robert Griffin got to Washington, they put that captain on his jersey, and he bought all the way into it, right? You remember that first game back, Shaddy? He was carrying the stars and stripes. Mm-hmm. He was doing it for America.
Absolutely.
He absolutely bought into this, I'm the leader of the team. He said it over and over again. I'm the leader of the team. I'm the leader of the team. I'm the leader of the team. So I was talking to a football player, he's a Hall of Famer, about that. And he told me that when it was going bad, he said, look, the reality is, this is in Griffin's second year, your second-year quarterback should not be your leader. Like the Colts never looked at Andrew Luck as their leader those first 2 years. They were developing Andrew Luck, and they knew it was going to be there, but it wasn't Andrew Luck's job to run the locker room. That being said, nobody was going to punch Andrew Luck in the face, right? But it wasn't his job to be that. Like, it's not Geno's job to be that guy. So he's 24. Like, he turns 25 in October. He's 24 years old right now. You grow into that sort of role. Like, you get to that point. So when people are going to take this and start looking at leadership on Geno Smith, the question fairly to be asked is, how much of a leader do you reasonably expect him to be in his third year in the league? Like, given the fact that he's not very good. But even if he was, like, how much leading is a guy doing at that age? How much leading are you prepared to do at that age? Because let me tell you something silly that 24 does. 24 puts his finger in somebody's face and doesn't think anything's going to happen. Like, here's what 24 thinks in those situations. I'm 24. I'm the quarterback, okay? Yeah, I can put my finger in your face. You ain't going to do nothing. I'm the quarterback. Well, you know, exceptions to every rule. Exceptions to every rule. Rut-row. Somebody put the E before the I, and it wasn't a C. You know, everything's a little bit different. Everything kind of changes up, right?
Right.
But that's how that goes. But if you're the guy in charge, I do agree. In those situations, that's not the move you make, because you know going in, if I do this, this is going to get out of hand. Like, if you're going to be in charge of anything, you got to recognize that part, that's when those things are going to happen. But to be fair to Geno, it's a dilemma. When you're the guy in charge, can you just walk away with some dudes breaking bad with you? No. Right? Like, how was he supposed? Right? How was he supposed to be the leader? Like, in every direction, it was going bad. He walks away, dude gonna call him a sucker. He stays there, it then gets out of hand. Like, they need to be able to discuss it better. But once they were in it, I don't know what Geno was supposed to do. Well, other than not put his finger in the dude's face. Like, if he did that, and we've had this from a few people, the finger in the face. The finger in the face, not a great move, right? But going so hard about Geno and as leader, ask yourself how much is reasonable to expect of somebody in the situation that he was in. That's all.
Bomani.
Welcome back to The Right Time. My name is Bomani Jones. Thanks for listening on ESPN Radio and the new ESPN app. We're presented by Progressive Insurance. All right. Ray Rice they've actually done a pretty impressive job on the public relations for Ray Rice. Like, started with the interview with his wife way back when and carrying it over to now. Like, they've done a good job of it. To be fair, it appears that they've done a good job on the Ray Rice PR in large part because Ray Rice seems to be on board. Right? Now, an example I think is, like, not dissimilar to Ray Rice's. I mean, they're not the same, but I think they're not dissimilar. You'll understand what I mean. When Tim Hardaway got on the radio that one time and said those absurdly homophobic things, I actually feel bad for him in a lot of ways about that, because he said it, and unlike anybody I can think of in a similar situation, he owned it. Like, he did that in an interview with Dan Le Batard. And Dan talked about how Tim called him and was like, yo, it's my fault, and I got to deal with this. Like, immediately. None of that out of context. None of that you walked me into it. No, he owned it. And if you read up on what Tim Hardaway's done since that moment as it relates to the cause and the plight of gay and lesbians, LGBT, I always get the letters out of order. Forgive me. I'm sorry. I ain't got that kind of memory. But he's been all the way on board, like, in a way that you can't wipe out what it is that you've done, but you can't knock the man at that point. Like, if you're more caught up on the first part than that one, then, something might not be right with you at that point. Like, he's done everything you could ask somebody to do. Now, with Ray Rice, I'm certainly not asking anybody to forget what Ray Rice did, because I think that's too much. Like, not even that. I understand the people who would choose to hold on to it, but I have found myself personally impressed by the way that Ray Rice has handled himself and the things that he said since then. Jamel Hill of ESPN did an interview with him. She came on and talked with us, and she almost felt like she was getting got. Like, that's how impressive that he's been in, owning the things that he's done. There's some things you kind of would prefer that he would say that he has not. But Ray Rice has been his best ally in this. And now, he's 28 years old, 27, 28 years old. Like, there's still time for him to play. I have to admit, when I said that Ray Rice's career was over, I thought he was so much older. And you know why I thought he was so much older? Because it's like all those dudes who played for the Ravens where Ray Lewis are the same age. Like, Ray Lewis is there for that whole time, and Ray Lewis seemed like the same guy for that whole time. It's hard as hell to remember when anybody got to Baltimore, because the only thing otherwise you remember is that Ray Lewis was there. Think about it, Shannon. Wait, how long has Haloti Ngata been in the league?
06.
Thanks for nothing.
I'm sorry, I'm that guy.
I know.
Bad.
Thanks for that.
Haloti Ngata, man, he has been in the league forever.
Yes, you do that sometimes. Sometimes you help me out here. You just let me out there. You just couldn't help yourself.
It is kind of funny, though, because Terrell Suggs, I was talking with someone about him recently, and he said, yeah, Suggs, when he played with Baltimore in that Super Bowl against the Giants. It's like, wait a minute. No, he didn't, but it just seems like guys like that have been there forever.
Yes, Terrell Suggs and Peter Boulware are the same person. Because they do that, too. They switch them out. They had Sam Adams. Then it became Haloti Ngata. Right? Remember they had Sam Adams, and then they didn't have Sam Adams, and then Ray Lewis complained they didn't have Sam Adams anymore, and then they went out and got him another Sam Adams. Like, that's basically what they did. Any of those guys. Joe Flacco, for all I know, Joe Flacco got there in 2002. For all I know, we're from Elvis Grbac to Joe Flacco with no stops in between. So Ray Rice is just a lot younger than I thought he was. He's 28. He didn't play last year. He's 28. The Cleveland Browns have thought about signing Ray Rice. They did. Mike Pettin, the head coach, told SI.com that they discussed whether or not it makes sense to sign Ray Rice. And the situation they've got is it makes sense for them because they need a running back.
And Mike Pettin, former Raven assistant.
Yes, and Wilbur Montgomery, the running backs coach, was Ray Rice's running back coach through 2013. Like, it's all right there. It's all the right people. And my guess, just based on how these things normally go, and I might be wrong. Like, this is conjecture. I'm being frank with you about the fact that this is conjecture. You don't tell people you're thinking about signing Ray Rice unless you're really talking about signing Ray Rice. Like, you don't just throw that out there as a topic of conversation. Yeah, we're also thinking about bringing in Ray Rice. No big deal. No. You don't mention that unless you've gotten far along in that thought.
Once you get to the point to make it public, there obviously have been discussions within the organization about bringing this guy in.
Yeah, they're seeing how it'll go over. Like, that would be my guess here. Like, that's a trial balloon. Let's see how this goes over. So we're saying we're thinking about signing Ray Rice. Will our fans openly revolt? Now, it is worth noting, they already have Isaiah Crowell, who, when he was at Georgia, he had that boom, boom, pow. I ain't talking about Fergie. He had the boom, boom, pow remix. He had that boom, boom, pow. Yeah, there you go. Yeah, that's the one that he had. Like, hey, football teams are often willing to take chances. It just so happens in this case, this is the chance we all know his name. Like, that's what flips that up. This is a different sort of chance. But if it's at this point, they're really, 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 really thinking about it. And right now, it appears that their running back mix is Isaiah Crowell, Terrence West, and Duke Johnson. 2 second-year players and a third-year player. And if we're going to keep it real, you know who those guys could probably learn a lot from? Ray Rice.
Duke's a rookie.
Duke is a rookie.
To go along with your point.
Yeah, I said second-year player. What I'm reading said third-round pick, and I forgot that this is the Duke Johnson that just played for Miami last year. Yeah. Now, they could use a grown-up. Like, it could help to have a grown-up on the team. And would anybody be a better team guy for you right now than Ray Rice? Like, Ray Rice is in that place that Michael Vick is in, right? Where I'm here to forgive anybody. I am the king of forgiveness. I'm so glad to be playing football and not in jail no more. I'm so sorry about these dogs. I can't say it enough. That's kind of where Ray Rice is. He ain't going to cause you. He wasn't causing much trouble before. He really ain't going to cause you any trouble now. Like, he can help your operation right now. Now, how well can he run the ball? I'm not sure. But it's worth kicking the tires on him. It's worth it. And they got the guys in place who I think can do the right interviews, and Ray Rice can do the right interviews. He can do everything that needs to be done. Listen, to me, if he comes back, then he comes back. If he doesn't, I understand if teams decide that it's not worth the risk and it's not worth the PR at a position that's largely interchangeable. But if he comes back, you won't hear any argument out of me. And that's not condoning what he had done in the past, but I don't think that he should have been blackballed for it. I don't think that that should be the end. And if he can make it work and turn it into something positive, then that's good for everybody involved, including his wife, who, quite honestly, has got kind of caught up in this as a prop for our own hot take discussions.
And now, for Geico's edition of Stuff Found in Your Car, we go inside your side door pocket.
Hello, yes, the crumpled receipt with gum in it. From your anniversary dinner, you sprang for expensive wine, your server was Beth. That dinner was a couple $100. Money you could get back if you switched to Geico and saved hundreds of dollars on your car insurance. I bet you'd save that receipt. Frame it even. But really, where did I go wrong? Was it the corkage fee?
Geico. 15 minutes could save you 15% or more on car insurance. Visit geico.com today.
Now, the right time with Bomani Jones on ESPN Radio.
And ESPNRadio.com.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the right time. My name is Bomani Jones. Thanks for listening on ESPN Radio and the new ESPN app. All guests join us on the Subway Fresh Take Hotline, including our next guest. She's a columnist for ESPN.com. You can also find her work at ESPNW.com. Her name is Jane McManus. Jane, what's going on?
Not much. How are you doing?
I am doing all right, Jane. The Jets. You have covered the Jets. You've spent time around the Jets. What in the world is going on?
The Jets always seem to have something happen, don't they? It just, it seemed you have a new coach this year. You have a new general manager. It seemed like things were calmed down. Rex Ryan is in Buffalo. The circus had moved out of town, and yet still you have something absolutely unbelievable happening this early in training camp with Geno Smith getting his jaw broken at the hand of another teammate.
Yeah, that's new. Like that, you don't see this sort of thing come up. Like you hear about football players fighting. You rarely hear about somebody fighting the quarterback. Am I right?
That's true, and you rarely hear about somebody fighting to the point of injury like this. So, I mean, let's not kid ourselves. There are plenty of fights in training camp, either on the field sometimes they're behind closed doors, but you don't usually see people getting serious injuries as a result of that. There seems to be some kind of line, but the line was definitely crossed. IK Enemkpali was the player who broke Geno's jaw, and he's a second-year linebacker. He's not somebody who, would have the most secure roster spot even. He played he had moments last year where he played pretty well, but, just definitely like a lower on the totem pole player going after the starting quarterback is very unusual.
All right, talking to Jane McManus of ESPN.com. And with Geno Smith, he's the quarterback. And that's really why we're here, is because he's the quarterback. The quarterback normally gets a level of deference and a level of respect from players simply from being the quarterback. Is Geno Smith the quarterback of that team, or does he just play that on the field?
I think there have been a lot of doubts about Geno Smith because he can practice really well, and he's had a much better camp this year than he's had in the past. But on the field, he's made a lot of mistakes, and not unlike Mark Sanchez. It's not like he's the only guy who's ever struggled in his first 2 years as an NFL quarterback. Some might have thought that it was a mistake to start him as his first year, but the Jets really had no choice at that point because Mark Sanchez had that shoulder injury that took him out for the season in the fourth preseason game of the year when Geno was a rookie. So, I don't think he's kind of built up that kind of respect that some other quarterbacks have in the league. Not an excuse to injure him, obviously. He's a victim in this pretty clearly. But at the same time, I do think that there have been questions about Geno Smith independent of this incident happening. So, yeah, I mean, I think when you look at him, there have been a lot of jokes today about his situation. Would those jokes, the jokes about an injured man have been made if it were Aaron Rodgers? I don't know. I don't think so. So it is definitely a different kind of dynamic.
Well, how have you observed the way before this that his teammates interacted with him?
I think when they're on the record, they're very respectful about Geno and, want to give him some deference. But I don't think, even like last year, when Michael Vick was with the team, I think that, Vick carries himself a little bit more. He's a veteran, like a little bit of, like more of a leader in that team. And, he had kind of a magnetism and drew people to him. I think the same is true of Sheldon Richardson. And Sheldon Richardson now, somebody who's also has had a lot of off-field trouble this year. He's suspended for the first 4 games of the season because of the substance abuse violation, and then later, was arrested for resisting arrest. And I think there kind of was a greater sense of goodwill toward Sheldon just because he's, a friendlier guy. He seems to, be a little bit more gregarious. I think, the fact of the matter is that, you gravitate toward certain people and you don't gravitate toward other people. And I think that certain guys in the Jets locker room have an easier time drawing people around them, and Geno may have struggled to do that. Again, not justification for any sort of violent attack or injury. But at the same time, certainly that's a dynamic in the Jets locker room.
We're talking to Jay McManus of ESPN.com. You mentioned a little bit earlier that when Rex Ryan left, the feeling was that the circus had left. Was the circus leaving, or was it just one of the ringleaders? Because the Jets, my whole life, it feels like a circus.
Well, you've had some things happen this year, right? The Sheldon Richardson thing is certainly not. That's a big deal too, and that's a colossal stupidity to be driving 143 miles an hour with a 12-year-old in the car and a loaded gun under the seat, allegedly, as was detailed in the press report. These are in the police report. I think that that's certainly something you don't want to see happening on your team if it's buttoned down. And then this as well. You wonder about what's happening in the locker room, and I've asked around, should somebody have intervened earlier? And I was told that this happened so quickly that it really wasn't anybody who could jump in, and that these kinds of altercations happen in training camp. You have people in at 6:00 in the morning, and they're not leaving until 10:30 at night, and they're kind of forced to be around each other, and tensions are high because everybody's competing for a spot, and that this kind of thing is going to happen no matter what the dynamic is in an individual locker room. But yeah, it does seem like the Jets have issues.
All right, we're talking to Jay McManus of ESPN.com. And Todd Bowles seemed to jump in front of this. It was out of nowhere. He decided to tell everybody about this. He seemed to chastise both sides pretty strongly. He seems like the sort of guy that's built to handle this, though, right? He seems to be the I'm going to take charge guy. Do I have that read correct from this distance?
Well, that's certainly, he was pretty impressive today, and I think that coming out and saying exactly what happened, although he wouldn't give the reason behind it, so that had to be kind of ferreted out a little bit, with reports now being that it was over $600 that Geno owed to IK. And, but yeah, getting out in front of it is important, and being able to stand up and say with a straight face what happened is important. And Bowles came out earlier this week and said that they were going to cut down on camp fighting, and that's on the field. And the reason they were going to do that is because the NFL has implemented some new rules where you can get ejected automatically if you're fighting on the field. A lot of it stems from last year in the Super Bowl, when it was really embarrassing for the NFL that the Super Bowl, the last couple plays were marred by a huge brawl on the field, and they don't want that to happen again this year. So Todd Bowles took a look at some of the new rules that the NFL has put into place on fighting and said, we're not going to do it at our camp, and he imposed some fines. So players know that it's going to be money out of their pocket if they're fighting on the field. And so that seemed to be, kind of a little bit of getting ahead of something, right? Law and order on that stuff. So for it then to happen in the locker room later in the week, it's probably out of his hands. Coaches aren't in the locker room. They're not. There's not a security guard, waiting to break up fights in a locker room. These guys are adults, and they're supposed to behave that way. So I think, yeah, but he's certainly out there trying to get in front of it in a way that maybe Rex wouldn't have been. I think Rex kind of liked to see guys go at it a little bit. He thought it was that it was a sign of competitiveness, that it was a sign of somebody really wanting something and passion. So that's two completely different ways of looking at this.
All right, talking to Jay McManus of ESPN.com. You check her work also at ESPNW. How's Ryan Fitzpatrick looks thus far in camp? That matters a lot more than it did a couple of days ago.
Well, I don't think that he necessarily has the speed and power that Geno Smith does, but he's certainly capable of managing a game. Some people even thought that he seemed a little bit better, smarter, crisper with his reads. Seemed like maybe a better mechanical quarterback without the straight up skills that Geno Smith had. So, who knows? Almost as if you put the two of them together, you might have the perfect quarterback. But who knows what that's going to be, because now he's kind of in the spotlight. I mean, the Jets need to bring somebody else in as well. But people aren't exactly excited necessarily to have Ryan Fitzpatrick. If he'd be a starting quarterback right now if he'd been better from the outset. So I think we have to see what he's capable of, but, we have no choice but to give him a shot. So,
is there any good news for the Jets? I feel like we've just been harping on all this negative.
Good news for the Jets. Calvin Pryor was injured at practice today. I mean, that's not good news. But no, I can't think of anything off the top of my head. Do you know why? Because this is such an unbelievable thing to have happened. It consumes your entire brain just to think about a starting quarterback being out for the start of the season because he was punched in the jaw by a teammate.
Well, you've covered this team for a while, though. The one thing after another portion of it, what's it like to cover a team where every 3 or 4 weeks or so I'm going to show up and I'm not going to believe what's going on here?
Yeah, it's it's almost like you don't have to actually cover football because there's something going on. It's a bit of a sideshow with this team. It's incredibly entertaining, though. In some ways, certainly, when Rex Ryan was there and he'd walk into the press room dressed up like his brother, wearing a Browns jersey when his brother was the Browns D coordinator. I mean, the story writes itself. You might as well give him the pen and the pad, and because he's basically trying to write your stories for you. So it's very interesting and it's very entertaining, and you can't sleep because something's going to happen in the middle of the night that you're going to need to write.
All right, last question for Jay McManus of ESPN.com. When Geno Smith comes back, maybe he's the starter, maybe he's not. But coming into this year, it seemed like he was basically fighting for his career as a starting NFL quarterback. How likely is it that he can get his job back after this, aside from the injury, just the circumstances surrounding it?
That's an interesting question because, Todd Bowles and Mike Maccagnan are not the guys who drafted him. So they don't have any loyalty to him in that way, right? I mean, if you draft a guy, you want to see him do well. You might keep him around longer. You're going to invest more in him because it makes you look good if he does well. With Todd Bowles, he doesn't have stake in that necessarily. He hasn't developed this quarterback. It's not on him if he succeeds or fails. So Geno Smith has to keep that in mind, and that's a pretty uncomfortable spot for a quarterback. So I think it has to do a lot with how Ryan Fitzpatrick does. If he does well, I think that makes Geno Smith a lot less secure, and that's a bit unfair, I think, for Geno Smith in this situation because I always think it's a little bit unfair when a guy loses his spot because of injury. And coaches like to say that that's not going to happen, but that happens a lot, and that could very well happen here. It happened to Mark Sanchez, 3 years ago. So Geno Smith has a very good reason to know that his spot is anything but secure.
Okay, before I let you go, I think I found somewhere you might be able to find the good news for these guys.
Oh, okay.
Leonard Williams, how's he been? I hear he's very talented.
Yeah, that's true. Good, looks like a good draft pick so far. Definitely, has the look of a very intimidating NFL player, and is looking good so far in camp. These kinds of things, especially with rookies, you really have to get them on the field. You have to see how they're performing in games before you can get pretty excited about it. But so far, especially when you have, not to dwell on any bad news again, but when you have Sheldon Richardson and who's going to be out for 4 games, and then Mo Wilkerson who has been injured as well, it's nice to have that kind of depth.
See that? Glass half full for me and Jay McManus of ESPN.com and ESPNW. Thank you so much for joining us. I appreciate it.
Anytime.
Bomani.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to The Right Time. My name is Bomani Jones. Thanks for listening on ESPN Radio and the new ESPN app. All guests join us on the Subway Fresh Take Hotline. Thanks to Jane McManus of ESPN.com for joining us last segment to talk about the Jets. Shannon, you got anything you want to talk about? Anything you want to talk about? Anything at all? Anybody got anything they want to talk about?
It seems as though it's all Geno all the time.
It is Geno. I will tell you something funny I saw float down my Twitter timeline today. Sounds like Baron Davis wants to come back to the NBA.
With that soul glow?
Just let it shine through. Now, see, that's the thing. You can't have a soul glow playing in the league, man. How am I supposed to hold on to the ball?
You can't be out here looking like Michael Cage.
Can't happen. Can't happen. I wonder if Michael Cage still got a Jerry curl. And if he doesn't have a Jerry curl, it's only because his wife told him not to. But it's not his fault. He's from West Memphis, Arkansas. Anyway,
that ain't nothing but Ultra Perm.
But who was I talking? Oh, Baron Davis. Yeah, that's him. He says that he wants to come back, and he says that he can play 20 minutes a game. Now look here, bro. If Baron Davis comes back, he will play no more than 20 minutes a game. But you can't be out here talking about, I can play 20 minutes a game. Like, that's the ceiling? Like, that's it?
Anytime he out here telling you, I can give you a good.
Yeah, I give you a good, yeah. Now, that's old. It doesn't get much older than that. I think Baron Davis graduated from high school the same year that I did. Well, I can give you a good 4-5 minutes at a time. Don't ask for too much. You should have caught me you should have met me when I was young. I could go all night.
You're lucky this is not 99.
Yeah, it's not 99. It's not. It is not at all. He is also quietly, Baron Davis, the secret to LeBron coming back to the Cleveland Cavaliers.
Oh?
You may recall that the Clippers wanted to get rid of Baron Davis so bad. And Donald Sterling wanted to – remember Donald Sterling was heckling Baron Davis from courtside. Right, back when you guys thought that Donald Sterling was just an eccentric racist as opposed to a vile one, right? So he would heckle Baron Davis from the sideline. He wanted to get rid of Baron Davis, and he wanted to get out from under Baron Davis's contract. So they sent their number one pick to Cleveland, which was unprotected. But they were like the number 8 team, like from the bottom in the league or something like that. I mean, what's the likelihood that pick is going to be number 1? Well, it was, and then Cleveland took Kyrie Irving. Because Clippers. Like, they're still the Clippers. Like, I don't know why people think that Doc Rivers and Chris Paul are going to make them stop being the Clippers. Like, they're still the Clippers. Those things happen. But, yeah, Baron Davis, I can give you 20 minutes. I can give you a dub. I got a dub for you. I can get you a dub. Baron Davis ain't giving anybody no 20 minutes in the NBA. That ain't happening.
How many knee injuries has this dude had?
Well, he's had 2 ACLs, right? Was it both ACLs or 2 on 1?
And I know he had a knee injury when he was with the Knicks, too.
Yeah. Well, the thing with Baron Davis is, even with best case scenario with Baron Davis, he was never going to be 16-year NBA veteran, Baron Davis. That being said, Shannon, did you ever think that it would be 20-year NBA veteran Vince Carter?
Wow.
20 years. He got drafted in 95, right? No, 98. 98. There we go. Okay. 17-year veteran Vince Carter.
Still.
And I don't see anything to indicate that Vince Carter's going to stop playing basketball anytime soon.
What was cool is, though, you still got 3 guys from the 98 draft still playing.
Ooh, let me see if I can get these. Vince Carter.
Mm-hmm.
Dirk Nowitzki.
Mm-hmm.
Paul Pierce.
Yes, sir.
Hey, you're not the only one that knows a lot of unnecessary stuff. I sure was about to say Antoine Jameson, though. It took me a minute. Like, well, the Dirk got me back on live.
You assume Jameson out here still shooting those floaters.
Hey, man, why not? Look, Vince Carter's still in the league. There's no way. Well, I don't know. Actually, I don't know how much longer Vince Carter going to be in the league. He shot 29% from 3 last year. Yeah, it might be a wrap for him very soon. He shot 40% the year before, so somebody's going to give him another chance. But Vince Carter, thank goodness for YouTube, because we were never going to be able to explain to our children what the Vince Carter thing was. Like, yes, Vince Carter is the greatest slam dunker of all time. Vince Carter has the greatest dunk contest performance of all time. And Vince Carter has, without question, the greatest in-game dunk of all time in the history of the world when he dunked over Frederick Weiss.
Why I got to be bringing up old stuff, though?
Well, Shannon, I wonder why you're making that face. I mean, you're a Knicks fan. You remember Frederick Weiss? You remember when he played for the Knicks? You remember when he played for the Knicks, right?
That one summer league.
He never made it.
No.
Did Vince Carter shame him into never coming over? Or was he just not good?
He never came over, and if you remember, Frederick Weiss was drafted one spot ahead of Ron Artest.
Local favorite Ron Artest, correct?
Yep.
He's from New York. That would have worked out real. That would have worked out real bad, by the way.
Absolutely.
Real bad. Because Ron Artest would have been leaving practice and going to play games, like in the QB.
In a Knicks jersey.
Yes.
The Right Time with Bomani Jones. Weeknights from 9 to 11 Eastern or on demand at ESPNradio.com.